With us in the studio is Tayo Ojuri, aviation consultant and managing partner at Glow Aviation. Thank you very much, Tayo, for joining us.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here.
All right, so for want of a national carrier now, since 2003, we've not had a national carrier since the liquidation of Air Nigeria. So since then till now, we've not had a national carrier, and the government is saying Arik Air is a suitable alternative, but it has been rejected. Why?
Well, I would say AMCON is proposing because obviously from their point of view, they're trying to recoup their investments. It's just a strategic option. But the government obviously on its side actually decided to build on having a model of full 95% ownership by the public or private-public partnership and 5% by the government. I don't know that reason, but what the questions we should be asking at this point is, why can't we, who's going to pay off the money owed by Arik? The same, Arik and Aero contractors are in the same boats. They're both owned and managed and operated by AMCON at this time.
Okay.
So if it's for AMCON to sell it, look for a viable buyer.
But is this not a cheaper alternative for the federal government? Since AMCON is looking for a viable buyer, convert Arik Air into a national carrier and change the business model.
I wish it was that easy. Okay. If it was that easy, I'm of the school of thought in the first instance that the government should not even be in the business of operating any business.
Oh, okay.
More or less talking of operating an airline. Airline is very capital intensive, is very volatile, is very high human capital engaged. So we need experts, not government. What government should provide should be the enduring environment, i.e. regulations, i.e. infrastructure. We should have a very seamless, efficient airport that is able to facilitate and endear the airlines, no matter what airlines, to operate out of Nigeria. Over years, we've had roadmaps, we've had policies that said we want to make Nigeria a hub. We're not short of ideas in Nigeria. What we should do is, first of all, take the baby step, build the infrastructure, have a great airport system, then the airlines will come. Ryanair said it, build it and they'll come. Once you actually build, you'll have the airlines, which are actually great to operate and driven by private entrepreneurs. They're able to operate and obviously they're able to withhold and withstand the challenges of the airline business.
Looking at what Africa, how Africa has fared when it comes to airline operations, do you think we've done so well? So is Nigeria, just being African?
It's not. I've actually looked at an analysis of airlines in Europe that has shut down this year. From Thomas Cook, which is returned to Austria in Slovenia, to a list of it. In September, we had 2 that went down. In France, we had Azor. So it's not an African thing.
So, but what's going on? What's going on in that sector?
The challenge, too, like you rightly said, is the government interference in the management of the airline. The challenge is Ethiopian Air has done a great job of managing a very successful airline. South African Airways, on the other side, the Minister of Finance said last week that it is not just working, with 95% owned by government and 5% owned by the South African Pension Fund. It's not work, so they're looking for private investors.
But what about Kenyan Airways? A lot of these airways are using their aviation sector to boost tourism in their country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what can be done? You can, rather than have a national carrier, there are other models, like you rightly said. There's the flag carrier option. If there's an enduring environment, we can boost tourism by having various airlines. An airline is the function of your model.
Okay.
There are some that what we call the low-cost carriers. That guide towards, they're the tourist carriers. They're the normal business carriers, what we call the legacy carriers. So we can actually have the airlines that are suited for different segments of the market.
But we don't have that here in Nigeria.
Unfortunately, we don't. And that's still a challenge.
Which I was just thinking that, which is why you called it a strategic plan by AMCON to push Arik Air to being a national carrier. If the government employs this model that you're talking about, so see a company that has the airlines and just use that to float a national carrier?
Yes, it was I wouldn't say thorough, if it is that viable, they've had it for about 3 years. Why haven't they found a suitable buyer in the market? That's the other side of the coin.
Okay.
If it was so much of a good business, now government is the last resort, and the government has that money. So why should you push it over to government? Why can't you get financial investors? Go to the market, go to the bond market, go to the international market. There are lots of investors. They see Nigeria. We have the position, the population. We have the geographical location. We have the drive as the attitude. We never give up spirit.
Okay.
So you have to have lots of people traveling. We have a growing middle class. So if they go to the market with Arik Air, they will buy. But we see issues with legislation. We see issues with the trends that have happened in the past. So investors are not ready to take it on.
To buy into the market.
Exactly.
Tayo Ojuru, thank you so much for your perspective on this.
Thank you.
With us in the studio is Tayo Ojuru, aviation consultant and managing partner, Aglo Aviation. Thank you very much, Tayo, for joining us.
Good morning again.
All right, so in all of this now, part of campaign, this is part of campaigns by this administration, the first term, but it is not yet fulfilled. I'm sure because there are plans in place and all
Very
of
long
that.
time.
But has this non-availability of a national carrier affected our economy?
Well, it's affecting our economy so much because you have lots of the foreign airlines taking much of the business, taking much of the services.
Yeah.
IATA released figures that last 8 months of this year, or the first 8 months of this year, they're about $700 million
That's
in
about
ticket transactions
Yeah.
that has been taken. And I would say categorically about 80, if not 90% of that is actually going to foreign airlines. So you actually have lots of foreign exchange going out. So how does it, with foreign exchange going out, that actually affects our economy? Because obviously that foreign exchange is not here. The service is not provided here. The human capacity for engagement of staff is not here. Most of the staff are not full-time staff with the foreign airlines. And even the services that they get, most of the services, like the fuel is just part of the services, the ground services is just part of services, even the crew, most of the crew are foreign crew.
Yeah.
So you find out that affects the economy in a sense.
And
But go ahead.
Now, of course, Nigeria also signed the bilateral air service agreement, yet we're not, because of the non-availability of a national carrier, we're not participating
Yes.
in it. Over 70 of these agreements have been signed, and so this is a disadvantage to us.
Absolutely.
So how do you think, so what do you think? You're an aviation expert. You've seen what happens in that field. How do you think Nigeria can progress moving forward to ensure that we have a national carrier we're actually getting revenue from this sector?
A national carrier, like I always say, is not the solution to it. A flag carrier would suffice.
And when you say a flag carrier, can you explain for the
A national carrier wants an Air Nigeria, which is owned, operated, or
Nigeria.
by the government, or carrying that flag. But a flag carrier could be an Arik.
Okay.
It could be, and which was an Arik when in its heydays. It went London, it went to US with the national flag.
Okay.
Airpeace is doing the same. Aero used to go to West Coast. So those are Nigerian-based airlines that are based in Nigeria. So they're just based out of Nigeria and they're carrying the Nigerian flag. So what we should do is have an enduring environment whereby we have maintenance here, which makes it cheaper for the airlines that are operating here to thrive and successfully operate. With that, they're able to actually grow. They're able to actually invite and attract technical investors as well as strategic investors, and code share. With that, they're able to grow and become the giant of the West African sub-region.
Okay,
That would actually thrive more, rather than, because obviously as an entrepreneur, they're performance and service driven. Government is not performance and service driven. So that would actually grow over years. Would they have challenges like any business? Yes, they would. But they're very dynamic. they're very scalable, they're very reflective. So it makes it actually being able to grow better.
All right, Tayo Ojuri, aviation expert, thank you very much for talking to us.
My pleasure.
With us in the studio is Tayo Ojuri, aviation consultant and managing partner, Aglo Aviation. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's always a pleasure.
But with what you've explained so far, we see that the aviation industry, it's not child's play. You need a lot of money to be used to ensure that that sector is running. But do we have the capacity in Nigeria?
We do not as government, because like we all know, government is even looking for a lot of money to fund the budget. So what's on the forefront and front burner is security, education, healthcare. So should government even be looking at funding an airline at this point? No, from my point of view. What they should be looking at, again, is that regulatory enduring environment for airlines, as well as foreign direct investment within the airline sector. We've seen lots of models lately whereby we see lots of well-versed airline or airline management groups come to invest into small airlines within regions. And there's a role and there's a model to that, whereby you see like Delta Air investing in Latin America because they have the reach. Regional carriers we still have lots of issues within West Africa, whereby connectivity is still a big issue. You're traveling to Cameroon, for example, and it's about 400,000, which is about the same cost of traveling to Europe. Connectivity within the sub-region. So it's for us to have a viable national flag carrier within the region, and from that, once it's been tried and tested, we'll have lots of foreign investors that are able to come and invest for the funding, so that they're able to actually help with that cost, as well as the technical partnership. So it's going to help us grow the capacity that we need, as well as encourage
So the burden is not on the government now?
The burden is on the government in terms of regulation and enduring environment. The government has said they even want to operate an MRO, which is a maintenance, repair, and organization maintenance facility for aircrafts. Government shouldn't be doing that. Just create the model, environment. People will come and invest. And then, obviously, with a good environment, it would help with the growth of the region, of the sector. So this would help us, because what's going to happen if we're not actually taking step in the right direction? Last term, they said the same thing that the government wanted to start the national carrier. They went to Farnborough to make the announcement.
Yeah, then we got a logo.
Yes. We have the concession of the airports, the air lease. They have all these buoyant ideas, but when is it going to start? We have transaction advisors that are actually starting, that they've engaged. Where are we in this project management process? So this should really help us if they engage the stakeholders and say, what's going to now happen if the government's national airline starts to the private carriers? What's going to, like you rightly said on the last segment, what's going to happen to the bilateral agreements? Everybody just wants to go to the very lucrative routes, which is the London, North America. And obviously, what we're going to see happen in the next 3-5 years is what we call the single African travel market, the SATAM. If we're not being proactive, what's going to happen is you're going to have lots of... Yes, leave us behind, and we have the more proactive airlines, such as Ethiopian Airlines, which are already setting up airlines for about 8 countries now. They're going to actually come maybe as Ethiopian Airline, or as AirSky, or as another airline.
So collaboration with them.
And we're trying to take up the traffic that we have.
All right. Thank you very much, Tayo Ojuri, for talking to us on this.
My pleasure.